minutes.
My job as a parent is to teach my children how to think for themselves and for me to behave accordingly. Those are the words of Dwight Wayne James. And today, Black Press is live with Dwight James, his family. His Pamela James, his wife, 23 years, Justin James, Jonathan James, Flint James, the artist, the musician that we'll hear from as well. And to be joining us also will be Jasmine James. Well, and it's a very important conversation that we're going to have with the James family, as we notice around the world, really, in the act of the killing of George Floyd. There has been a lot of rioting, a lot of protesting, and uprising. And the James family, as you can see, it's a mixed family in a sense that biracial, I guess, is that the right way to say it. But also, they live in Simi Valley, California. Simi Valley, California, many may remember the site of where officers who viciously beat Rodney King was acquitted, sparking riots and uprising in Los Angeles back in the early 1990s. Dwight James and Pamela James led their family and has led their family protest march. Welcome, James family. Thanks a whole lot for joining us. So we're going to start with you, the patriarch of this family. Tell us a little bit about the fact that you guys have been out there with the protesters. What's that been like?
It's been interesting because Simi Valley is where they held the trial for the policeman with Rodney King, and they acquitted him here, and they brought him to the city for a particular reason. But when we had the march this time, over 2,000 people showed up in support. It was not all Black people, it was all mixed people. Everybody can see what's going on and the challenge that's happening now. Now I got my little son here, so he gets tired. I'm going to send him out so he can stop fidgeting. Here, take that. There you go that way. Okay. And
so I tell you what, I see. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So it was interesting. It was really it was inspiring to see that so many people showed up, all kinds of people that were in support. And they recognized what's happening where they didn't, back in '92. And so they can see that, and the crowd was a mixed crowd of people, and they really, it's inspiring for me to see a place like, my wife's from New Zealand, so they had a huge march in New Zealand. I think there's 4 Black people in New Zealand. So, but they did a Black Lives Matter march. So
and we've been able to see a lot of those images.
Exactly. This is a unique time, and this is, we've never seen officers violate the law, be arrested for it the next day. I've never seen that, and so it is unique that that's happening. And being, in America, I guess we're always considered, if you have a drop of Black blood in you, you're Black. Being mixed, you would think might help, but you can ask my son Flint, or you can ask Jonathan or Justin or any of them, that you can still see what they have to deal with, what all Black people deal with, and it may
Yeah.
be a little bit easier for them. I don't know, because I've been there when Josh had a problem, but it's just a matter of we're seeing something now that I've never seen in my lifetime, that we're making
Right.
progress quickly.
Yeah, and I want to come back to Pamela, James, in a moment, but I know that we may not have Jonathan for the whole show, so I wanted to go out to Jonathan. Jonathan, your parents leading the efforts in the family to make you guys a statement. What has that meant to you?
I mean, it's always been kind of important to me, especially to relate to the heritage and everything. And I've been out protesting a lot, actually. Like, I think I protested probably 20 times so far, and it's been really meaningful to me. And it's crazy to see the change it's bringing about. Like, a lot of the officers have actually that have been doing unlawful stuff has been called out on it right away. Not everyone, but it's definitely different than it was before. And there's been a lot of petitions and stuff going on to try and take away qualified immunity. So I think we're making strides in the right direction.
Yeah, and Jonathan, again, you said something just there about the 20 protests. What stands out about the protests? Is there any one thing that stands out of all the protests that you've been involved in?
Um, I'd say the one thing is the amount of people that are there that they're not all black. It's all mixed people. It's all races. Everyone's there, and they're really showing a lot of support. Like, one of the protests I went to had over 20,000 people. So I mean, it's huge. It's a big deal. And the fact that the protests are all nationwide now too is they've been in all 50 states. So that means the country's really behind it.
Right. Yeah, and so Pamela, as your husband mentioned at the top, you're originally from New Zealand. So you're seeing this happen, and I want you to give us an insight, a little bit of New Zealand. Do you see? And your husband kind of alluded in sort of a joking way. There's only 4 black people in New Zealand, but what is the situation in New Zealand? What was the situation in New Zealand that you know as far as race relations, and compare it to America?
Right. Well, New Zealand signed the Maori people are the indigenous people of New Zealand, and the British came there to New Zealand, and they entered into a contract, a treaty with the indigenous people, basically offering their sovereign protection, and for like so they would have equal status. And that never happened. A bunch of land wars, and still, and essentially that is
Yeah, I
still,
think
yeah. So a lot of land wars occurred, and there are some, not a lot of reparations have happened. There's been a lot of urbanization. So it's still a continued issue for autonomy. It's nowhere near as challenge. Well, it has different origins. People were never enslaved, so it has a different history. But there's still work to be done in New Zealand. It's a lot more insular, being an island, and the focus is always kind of been looking out to the world. And slowly, over the last 20 or 30 years, perhaps because of its size, they've been making greater strides to embracing Maori culture, and it's kind of becoming a part of the national identity that New Zealanders are proud of. And so there's definitely been that shift in the last 20 or 30 years. Still work to be done, but it's promising. Here, you can see we're at
yeah,
a very different stage. And just the level of coming here, actually the level of vitriol and that I've seen, and just still this, I just wouldn't have expected that. It's just the blatant kind of and you're not just covert, but like, you know, polite racism. It's systemic in New Zealand too, but not to the same extent.
But you know what I noticed in New Zealand when they had that shooting there in the mosque, all of New Zealand came out and said they attacked us, and that's not the kind of thing that happens here. They attacked all the New Zealanders in the country, and they all came together, even though those were Muslims and it was a mosque that they attacked. They took it as one country, as one people, and that's not something that we do.
Well, I think too, you have a leadership there, Jacinda Ardern. She's very inclusive, compassionate, and it's very different sense of what, you know, what everyone's trying to accomplish and what people are getting behind. So on a very different path.
Yeah. Again, for those. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Pam.
I just say politically here, it's very divided, and you know, it's a very fraught environment.
It's Trumpified.
Yes.
I've heard that word before somewhere. You're watching Black Press Live. Fire is the name of the program. We have the James family on discussing their participation in various protest marches, and also the challenges that of being in a family of mixed race. Justin James, I see him in the background there. I wanted to go to you before we get to Flint, because Flint has some very special, a very special song that he's done, and he has some unique experiences too that we want to get to. So Justin, you know, you have a dad who's African American and a mom who's not African American. What's that been like for you, and what are the things that you've heard, especially growing up in and around Simi Valley, California?
I mean, it's just been pretty mixed, like, for the cultures. You know, my dad, like, he's Black, my mom's from New Zealand, so they both teach me, and I get taught different stuff about different cultures and everything. So it's been, like, the unity is cool and everything like that. So it's been pretty cool.
There's a lot of whole group here. The kids are mixed up too.
Yeah, my whole friend group is mixed. We're all different races, for sure.
So they're mixed like Asian.
Okay. So is that something that you seek out, or it just happens?
Nah, it's definitely natural. Didn't look for them. They just had, like, found them for sure.
I would say visibility would have something to do with it, though, because, you know, there's what struck me in moving to Simi Valley is that there are generations of families here. You know, there's the grandparents and people who have lived in this community, and they've kind of been insulated for quite a period of time, you know, so there's kind of like even the San Fernando Valley right next door. It's like, that's the valley. And, you know, there's definitely a lot of prejudice that's afoot, you know, and people don't want the city to change. You know, there's a lot more people, not a lot, of color starting to move in, and you know, there's issues.
It's the fear factor. You know, they're afraid of what's different, and that's usually the biggest thing.
Especially with this march, there were talks on local boards. People were concerned about looting, and people, because of Simi Valley's history, that there'd be outside people coming in to kind of destroy their property.
The others.
It was very kind of disheartening to see that.
But that happened before the march. When the march happened, it was really good. Yeah. It was really, really good. Not a single incident, and thousands of people out there blowing their horns, and this is a small city, and it's a little bit different. I saw something the other day for recruitment of the Simi Valley Police Department, and that was very interesting because it summarized the problem that we're having in the city. Because the problem is that not in this city, but I'm talking about in the country with police departments, because the recruitment video had them shooting guns, you know, at the range, It had them in their SWAT gear. It had them with their tank. It had them with all of these things. And then I was waiting to see a missile launcher in the video because it looked like we're going to battle. And that's not what we're looking for. It's community policing. It's not that.
It was very militarized. It was quite shocking.
Yeah.
But you know,
So, no, go ahead. Complete that thought, Pam. I'm sorry.
I'm just there are issues in Simi Valley too, as far as people of color having their voices heard and having representation. This local city council member had posted some.
One of the members in particular.
One of them has had some social media postings which have been
questionable,
quite disturbing. And there's some small but local groups who are set up to kind of challenge that leadership, and that I think that kind of his idea is kind of pervasive. It's probably entrenched here in the Simi Valley, and so there's a lot of work to be done, and people deserve better representation. So that is starting to happen. So one thing I think from the march, that's a positive, because the march is really an initial step. It's great that everybody publicly came out to support it, but there's obviously a lot of work now that still needs to be attended to from the local level on up. People are ready to be active now. I think maybe they've been out of work for a time, and they're just passionate. They've seen everything that's going on. They have time and energy to devote, and they want to kind of make some changes.
Yeah. Again, we're talking with the family of Dwight and Pamela James. They have 5 children. We saw the youngest one. What was the youngest one's name again?
Jayden.
Jasmine James and Jonathan James is also on the call. But we also have Flint James. And, one of the things that, the thing that's really got African Americans and many of America now up in arms is the police stops and then their actions after these stops. And Flint, we understand that you've had several experiences where you've been stopped by police. And you've also written about it. We're going to get to that in a little while. It's because we are live. Sometimes there is some technical difficulties. We were going to play a song at the top, but we're going to try and get that song in before the end of this broadcast. But Flint, can you talk to us about your experiences?
Yeah, I had a lot, too many. But living in Simi Valley, I've had a lot too. I
remember you got stopped, and I was coming.
Oh yeah, when I was coming from track practice. Yeah, actually, that's right. When one of the times, this was when I was in high school, like a freshman or so, like 14, and me and my friend were just walking back from track practice, and he's also black too, and we went to the donut shop to go get went inside, purchase some donuts, and then we're outside the donut shop just eating our donuts after practice. And, Simi Valley PD, one of the cops, he came by, drove past us and seen us, and then he swung back around, and he actually had like a little Explorer cadet kid with him too. So I think he was kind of trying to show off a bit, but, he came over to us and stopped us and asked us what we're doing here, told us we're loitering. Even though we have a receipt, for like we're eating donuts. And he's
away.
You said what?
He just called me about 2 minutes before that happened because I was going to pick him up.
Yeah, that's right. We were waiting to get picked up. So, but by the time that my dad came to pick us up, this dude had us like sitting down on the curb being detained, and he's calling me and my friend stupid when we were trying to ask him why. We're out here, he's telling us we're back talking him and this and that. And, it was such a scene that there was ladies across the street at like a salon and whatnot, and they were crying, like they were in tears because they were in disbelief of how was being treated and what was going on in that situation,
But these were white ladies.
Yeah. And
so I want to go back, Dwight James. Earlier, I read a quote In fact, you had given me this quote. We kind of featured you and your family in a Father's Day story that we did. I think it was a year ago. And you mentioned in the quote, and I'm trying to pull it back up, but I mentioned at the top, you said, my job as a parent is to teach my children how to think for themselves and for me to behave accordingly. Can you expound on that a little bit and give us the insight into that lesson that you have taught your children?
So, as a parent, I watch a lot of parents, and they coddle their kids. So I'll give you an example, just a playground example. When you see a brand new parent at the playground, they watch their kid go right under them. They want to catch them. Don't climb on the bars. I got to be right there to catch you. I want to be there. And then after you have the second child, and you'll start to see that you can tell the ones that are brand new parents that are right there to catch them. And then you have the ones that have the second and third child, where they're climbing on the monkey bars. They might be on the top of the whole structure where they're not supposed to be. The parents go, he'll be okay. It's kind of like that as they grow. Some of the parents never shift from coddling the kids and taking care of them and allowing them to think for themselves and telling them what to do. And you'll find when they get to their teenage years, that's when the kids and the parents start to fall out. They start to clash. And that clash happens because they're not teaching them to think. They're telling them what to think. Even my son, he's 6 years old. When he talks to me about, you have to go to bed now. Well, you have to go to bed now. I'm going to tell you in advance, but the reason you're sleeping is because you get up early and you want to be clear and fresh when you do it. Now, I'm giving him an explanation, the explanation that a lot of parents will give, but why do I have to go to bed now? Because I told you so, that's why. So this is not much thought for the child. It's parents themselves are just, they're controlling. And so when you give them choices, I ask my little son all the time, which one do you want to do? You got 5 minutes. You want to play, you got 5 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever he has left. You want to play this video game, you want to watch something or whatever. But I always give choices so they have to think and come to a conclusion. Would you rather have more of this tomorrow or today? Because do you want to eat this right now, you get one. But if you do it tomorrow, you'll get 2 or 3. And they'll go, And if he says tomorrow, you have somebody that's a thinker for themselves, and they'll do better in life overall because they get to make these decisions. That's what I mean, that when Joshua goes out, or if Justin goes out, any of these kids go out on their own to do anything in the street, they have to make decisions. The parent's not going to be there to catch them. You've seen yourself. Kids go to college, their freshman year of college, first time their parents are not telling them what to do, or they're sneaking around the parents. If you don't have your child's ear where they can trust you not to be penalized for what they tell you, look, my daughter's case, this guy likes me and he's trying to press me to have sex or whatever she may say. You never hear that. You don't have a chance to advise them. You don't have a chance to direct them, tell them what to look for, to try to help. And they're not going to give you their ear if they're not thinking for themselves, if you don't trust them enough to make good decisions on their own. And that's really where I'm coming from, because you can see if they make a mistake, if they tell you, well, we went out, we smoked pot, did this, and you go, all right, then you're grounded. Then you'll never hear that again. They will never trust you. You broke.
Yes. So Justin and Flint, I was watching a video that LeBron James put together, and in that video, what was so telling was this little kid shooting hoops. He was in his driveway, and a cop car rides by, and the kid, his instinct was to hide. So as young African-American males, what is it that you fear most when you see a police car?
trouble for me. Like, you know, usually when I'm being protected or feeling safe, usually when I see them, I'm like, I hope I'm not getting followed, or I see a police car, like, oh, I hope I'm not about to get followed, or, you know, I've had times I just made eye contact and just that is enough to get stopped and something go on. So for me, it's like, you know, it's more of a negative thought for me whenever I see police or anything. Just naturally, that's like my instinct, because of what I've had to deal with growing up and whatnot.
Wow. And Justin, the video, it looked like you were shaking your head that you might have seen that video I was describing, LeBron James's video.
Yeah, I saw that online.
So when you saw that video, could you relate?
I mean, yeah, definitely like piggybacking off of what Flint said, for sure. Like if you see him, you know, you just get that instant feeling. You kind of know what's about to happen, and you have to kind of get nervous a little bit just because you know something about like might go down. Like you just get that instant feeling. So definitely, I could relate.
Yeah. And Pamela James, I want to go back to you because you were raised in African American children, and you're used to two cultures, right? New Zealand and the American culture. Can you talk about the challenges that you experience here in America that you might not experience in New Zealand?
I mean, well, yeah, it's just the kids' physical safety. I feel that's definitely more threatened here. Potentially, it could be so. You know, now they're adults. You know, I'm not with them all the time. You know, we actually homeschooled the boys up until their high school years, and you know, when I was out with them, we really didn't have any problems. And I really realized because I was extending my own privilege to them because they were with me. And as they're young adults moving out in the world, obviously with any mother, you cannot provide that or do that for your child. And so that's, you know, it's concerning. I don't know what situations they're going to be confronted with. And I have to trust that they are, you know, they can be calm and think rationally and, you know, as you would all do, but it's kind of this extra pressure that they have to be conscious of so many things. I think in New Zealand, you know, the police, when I was growing up, the police didn't even carry weapons. We didn't have guns, so that wasn't even a thought. Even if I were raising them there, so that's definitely an issue. And as I said, just the level of you know, Justin's experience, he's been fortunate enough, like his friend group is quite mixed. And I think that's because there are more people of color coming into Simi Valley. When Joshua was going through high school, it wasn't so much, you know, so he probably felt more isolated and it was more difficult for him. And so that's great that Justin had that experience, but you know, they each you know, they had experiences with a lot of kids, a lot of vocal Trump supporters, and kind of back to what Dwight was saying, kids who are maybe parroting their parents' rhetoric, you know, calling them names and just things that they hadn't that I guess with homeschooling that they hadn't really been fully exposed to. I mean, homeschooling is a more insulated environment, and the circle we were running in was fairly progressive. So that was a shock when they got to high school, I think, for the boys especially too, and you know, challenging that they had to deal with all of that negativity just in going to class. And I think I don't, you know, in New Zealand, I think, you know, that they've always looked out to the world and to America, especially to African American culture, the local Maori and Polynesian youth. You know, it's been a point for them to kind of to focus, feeling like their journey is kind of similar. Right. They're disenfranchised and their voice is heard, and you know, in America they have, all the sporting heroes and people that they could more visibly emulate. So I think they see that, and the boys too, and carrying that with them, they feel like they have this extra responsibility, I think, too, that if they are in a certain situation that they, that they have to speak out and they have to be behaving correctly, that, there's not a lot of leeway for mistakes. So that's, that's always a big concern. You don't know who they're going to be confronting and what sort of situation they're going to be in.
So again, we're live, Black Press Live, with the James family, the family of Dwight and Pamela James. Dwight is a African-American born citizen, and Pam is from New Zealand. They've been married 23 years. They have 5 children. And we are discussing the challenges of a biracial family, especially today. They've also immersed themselves into the marching, the protesting. Flint James, and for everyone to understand too, that both Dwight and Pam refer to Joshua. And when they say Joshua, they are actually talking about Flint. Flint is a recording artist, and Flint is the name he uses when he's recording. So so there's no confusion there. But Pam, I wanted to ask you too. I wanted to ask you, Pam. You're from New Zealand. You've been giving us some really good insight. What about the N-word in New Zealand? Is that something that's done a lot, said a lot? Have you heard it a lot there?
No, but you have to understand, I've been here almost 25 years now. So when I was growing up, not so much. And actually, this is kind of crazy. I always remember once, like singing a song. This kind of goes back to like just inherent racism and just not really thinking about it, as a white person, and that being your privilege. I remember that little children's verse. Oh goodness. I just forgot.
Oh, you forgot to, but it doesn't matter.
That's okay. But you know what?
Yeah, at the time.
That's
and I just kind of, and I remember growing up, and I remember reciting it with the N-word. I can't think of the name of the verse.
Oh,
what is it?
Is that where they say "eeny, meeny, miny, mo"?
That's right. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And then it was a catch it by the toe. I remember saying it when I was a kid. Nobody said anything, and to be fair, I mean, I think coming from New Zealand, I really didn't have much of a history of the African American journey in here at 5 or 6, but no parent intervening. It was just and I remember when the kids were growing up here, and I was saying to the kids something about it, and I was just about to say that, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was just like that was in there, and I hadn't even known it was there. And then one of my daughter's friends went to say it, and she was like, and I was like, oh, and she was like, catch a tiger by the toe. And I was like, horrifying for me. And just like that, I realized then that was kind of ingrained. I hadn't even realized it. No one around me had corrected me. And, obviously you kind of don't say, you only say that those kind of verses or such things when you're children's games. And I hadn't thought about it for years and years, but that was kind of shocking to go, wow,
Wow. Yeah.
That's part of my history.
Wow.
Now, see, Flint has been in New Zealand recently. He spent 4 or 5 months there. And what was your experience like, Josh? Because he has a more current.
Yeah.
Oh, the N-word. Nobody. It was more. I had people from like Europe, like Germany and stuff, that I actually hung out with that would refer to Black people like that, and I had to really sit them down and talk to them about. And they're just so used that's just what he's like. Oh, that's that's just what we say. Like it's not even. I don't even mean it like that. But it's like, all right, like I need to have to sit him down and like really educate him on it. And it's like let him think about what I was saying. And the next day, one particular dude, he came back to me and apologized to me. It was just so like he had no idea any of the history behind it or anything. But like I said, that they weren't from New Zealand. A lot of the Maori people though, and like the indigenous people there, a lot of them actually like refer to themselves as black sometimes and stuff, and they'll say it here and there, and they say it the same way that like I say it, more like an endearing term and stuff like that, nothing negative, but that's them getting a little bit of the culture, I think, from America and whatnot, and using it over there.
Yeah. And Justin, so your mom spoke about recognizing that she was extending her privilege to you guys, right? Did you guys realize that there is a difference in the way that they are treated, that you are treated compared to your mom?
Yeah, definitely. Like as I got older, I kind of noticed, like going into 8th grade and stuff. Like, yeah.
Well, I just remember like following you into stores, and I wasn't necessarily like lock, stock, and barrel with you guys. And then just people kind of following you around stores and kind of looking at you and keeping closer eyes on you. And I remember walking into that situation. It was just, and this has happened a lot, throughout the years, but it was just that was their experience, but they hadn't been experience with me, so that was eye-opening.
Yeah, and Flint. So I'm sorry, Dwight. I wanted to go back to Flint for a moment because I wanted to talk about the song that he wrote and recorded, and as we try and cue it up, Flint, can you tell us, first of all, tell the audience the title of the song and walk us through what it means, what the song means?
Yeah, so the song is called "To America," and what the song is about is really like what goes on, how the police treat African Americans, especially like young male like myself, and really from my point of view, like from my point of view, and my feelings about it, and everybody knows it's wrong, like they see it, but it's like when you hear it from somebody that's been through it and experienced it and known people that experience it, and it's just like it hits a little different, I feel like. And yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to get across in the song for the most part.
Yeah, well, we know the inspiration behind it, but how long did it take to really put the pen to paper and really get the music together? How long did that process take?
The actual process of the song, I had heard the instrumental, the music behind it, and really, I wrote the whole song probably in about 30 minutes or so, but it was something I didn't want to write about this for about 2 weeks. I just kind of didn't really feel like writing about it, and I couldn't really tell you why. I just felt like maybe it's not my place to speak on it or say something, and I had a bunch of thoughts going through my head, but by the time I sat down and heard the music, all these thoughts, it came to me in 30 minutes because this is something I've been thinking about, and it was real easy to just put it out onto paper because it's something I've already been living through. So I didn't even really have to think about it. I could just put it down and put it on paper.
Okay, so let's take a listen. What's the name again, Flint?
To America.
Let's take a listen. It'll take very short. So we've been having some technical difficulties, but it's going to come up in a few moments. So let's take a listen to Flint James and To America. And so we still having some difficulties, unfortunately. I've been fortunate enough to hear it. It's really, really an amazing song that that I think we've been trying our best to get it up. But in the meantime, can you tell us where we can get this song, Flint?
So at the moment, I have it on SoundCloud, and I go by the same name on SoundCloud, Flint James, and it's FLYNT James. And over the weekend, I'll have it on all platforms like Apple Music and Spotify and Amazon, iTunes, all of that. But yeah, if you want to listen to it right now, it's on SoundCloud at Flint James, so FLYNT James.
Great. So I want to go back to your mom and dad. Right. So earlier we talked about parenting and your parenting style. Obviously, a lot of people have had to make adjustments, right? What is the talk like for you guys when today, because of George Floyd, because of Breonna Taylor, because of Michael Brown, because of Ahmaud Arbery? What's the talk like now?
Johnny told you earlier he'd been to over 20 protest marches, and the very thing I talked to you about earlier was I was fine with it because I know that he wasn't going to go there and be oblivious to what's going on around him. I said, you can see things. I grew up in New York City, and when I was 12 years old, I used to sell candy door to door, for 50 cents a box. And I learned a lot because I sold all over the city, all the boroughs, some all white neighborhoods, and I'd get chased around with bars and stuff. They're gonna hit me with sticks, and then I'd be deep in the ghetto. What I noticed in doing all that, I started to get in tune to how the city flowed and when trouble was coming, and all these kids know that. That's the one thing I said. Listen, because you get a sense that there's a problem here. Now you can listen to that or you can override it. You can say, no, it'll be okay. But when they get that sense, I trust, like I said, Josh was gone for several months to traveling. So Johnny's always traveling around the world because they can think for themselves. And I'm not worried about if a cop goes to stop them. Now you have to be concerned about that in real. I mean, I've been stopped myself many times. I remember getting stopped 3 times in a week and never got a ticket. One time I looked like the Follow Home Bandit, whatever that is. And the next time my plate had a little too much dirt on it, so they had to stop me. And another time I forgot what the other excuse was. Oh, I had an out-of-state plate on the car. Whatever they could to stop me. Well, it wasn't just I had an out-of-state plate. I was driving in a neighborhood that sold drugs, and they were suspicious and just wanted to talk to me. So all those reasons are just reasons to stop you and check your car. And I've had it happen all over the country because I've driven to almost every state with the exception of Alaska. And it happens everywhere. So I know if they're thinking, they're not going to have. You hope they won't have that kind of problem. You can always encounter somebody, but if you're a thinking person, you can do your best to keep that from happening. Sometimes you can't stop it. I mean, I've had the police put their guns to my head, and I just go home that night. But how you react to that, and everybody's going to react different, can be the different, and how the cop reacts. What I see mostly that disturbs me the most is as opposed to de-escalating a situation as the officer is supposed to do, or should be trained in doing, or should be working at all the time, they escalate it. The person is stopped, pulled over, thrown on the hands out against the wall, and frisked. And they're supposed to be calm and cordial and respectful with that. Not angry that their rights are violated and they've been stopped for no reason. And then the cop, his ego gets bruised, and then he has to show you that he truly has authority. And this is what I see at each one of these incidents. So I don't, when I look at this, I say that you can work your way around it, but it can get out of hand very, very easily, and does, because that's why you see so many. See, they keep talking about the people that are killed. Yes, people are killed, but do you know, do 100 times that are abused, and their rights are abused, and they have been illegally stopped and abused and even ticketed. So it's an economic cost. There's a lack of any strength, so they feel demoralized, and then you have a physical abuse. If you just take stop and frisk was ridiculous. They're stopping people same guys 4, 5, 6 times just to check them out because they feel like it. The Constitution doesn't apply.
Well, Dwight, I think we finally got the music together.
Okay.
So we're going to give it another shot for everybody. This is Flint James.
Hold me in the way that you would. We build you up, America. We build you up, America. This my home, all I know, but all you do is bury us. No trust in America. No trust in America. You know it's wrong, just how long will this go on, America? We build you up, America. We build you up, America. This my home, all I know, but all you do is bury us. No trust in America. No trust in America. You know it's wrong, just how long will this go on, America? Land of the free where you advertise, but we ain't never been a target audience. Look at how you treat us, ain't it obvious? Target on my back cause my skin black. Hurt your ego might be my last breath. How many families wish they could get their kin back? They killing kids down. Hit the corner store for some candy. And you telling me that's threatening? Told him that I can't breathe, but he kept pressing. These issues we keep pressing. I hope you get the message. This shit go way back so deep. Up in arms cause we took a knee. You see it now, they killing us, they put it on your TV screen. Can't you see? Murder in the streets brought us so much pain. Trying to justify my brothers getting slain. I just wanna see change. Show me a sign and take a knee on the brother neck till he dead, just to give me signs in the streets. Trying to get this shit correct. My heart cold, my heart cold. Red and blue lights in my rear view. Please don't let this be my last night. Stopped on the side of the road. I'm praying that the young flood the polls. No justice. We've been fighting, but this time I hope it's not just us. We build you up, America. We build you up, America. This my home, all I know, but all you do is bury us. No trust in America. No trust in America. You know it's wrong, just how long will this go on, America? We build you up, America. We build you up, America. This my home, all I know, but all you do is bury us. No trust in America. No trust in America. You know it's wrong, just how long will this go on, America?
Flint James. Wow. That had to have come directly from the heart there.
Yeah.
Wow. Dwight and Pamela, well, actually, let me ask Justin. You hear your brother create such art like that. What goes through your mind?
It's just really cool to see. Definitely, I love to see it.
You know, I listen to that, and I listen to it a lot of times. But sometimes I was just talking about that, and then you play that song. It strikes me. It strikes me, you know, because what he's saying in there, there's a lot said in a short little riff, but it's so real.
Yeah, I think you can hear
Yeah.
Joshua's pain, you know, and I think he's speaking for a lot of people. And hearing again, it's all about people hearing others' experiences, so they feel that they can, you know, take action and support and help make change.
Yeah.
I think,
And again, yeah, just once again, just let everyone know where they can get that song.
Yeah, so I have it on SoundCloud at the moment, and my name is the same as it appears on here, Flint James, FLYNT James. And over the course of the weekend, it'll become available on all platforms like Apple Music and Spotify, Amazon iTunes, and all that. And you'll be able to get it there too.
oh, and the website, it's not up yet, but in the next couple of days you'll see. You can go to just flintjames.com, and it'll be there as well.
Yeah.
Usually during our program, we take viewer questions. We'll take one. We're almost out of time, but we'll take one. And I think obviously Pam, Dwight, you could probably relate. I have a biracial son. It's from John Day. He says, I have a biracial son who chooses to live in France. I can't much blame him. I just wish I could see more of him. If I could figure out how to do it, I might move over there. You hear that expression, Dwight and Pamela. Any thoughts on that?
Well, for me, I'm here. You know, I deal with a lot of people that, you know, a lot of what I would say right-wing Republican types, right? And you know, they love to say, well, if you don't like it, leave. You know, go to another country, thinking that America's the end-all be-all. And America is a great country, but it is not all there is. When I mention New Zealand to them, they go, oh, yeah, well, that's a nice place. It's a little different. But it makes you think when, with the Trump administration, quite frankly, trying to model themselves after dictatorships, basically, you have, to me, I'm glad there's an alternative, because all of our children have dual citizenship. They have passports from both countries. They're not locked into here. If this ever got out of hand, it is an option, but it's not necessary. You know, what we've done as Black people in this country is we've never said, well, let's run away from it. We've always worked to change it, and it has worked, and it continues to work. It hasn't worked fast enough to get everything done, but we've made a hell of a lot of progress since we were bought and sold like cattle. So where we are today is a sign that, you know, all we have to do is stay and make a change. And this tipping point that we've reached now with the police, which is another major spot that has to be changed. We need to take advantage of the momentum that's there and the concern. And I'm going to tell you, when they talk about defunding the police and people think, oh, that's stupid, you get rid of the police. They're not talking about getting rid of the police. They're talking about having community services and working on people before they get in trouble, before they get sick, before they have to go and steal and rob and try to make a living the best they can. Give them knowledge, help, and an opportunity early. It has not, because you can see the same thing. It's not about color, that if you go to Ireland and you go to the poorest place in Ireland, and it's all white folks, you're gonna have the same results as you will in any place that's economically down and depressed and deprived of the certain opportunities. So it's just a matter of those are the things we have to do. If you defund the police, it means you'll have fewer police. They won't do the same things, but you'll have people going in. If somebody's mentally ill, you don't have to worry about calling the cops and they come in and killing them. You call in people that specialize in that. It's just a change in policing. It's a change in how you address that, serve and protect.
And I don't know your reason, John, why your son why he left France. I hope that you see all this activity and people are renewing their commitment to making efforts to address some of these problems. And America has a lot of potential. And I would hope that his son, John's son, can see, that would want to be a part of making that change and being part of it, and maybe coming home at some point and being a part of it too. I think there's a lot of work to be done.
It's nothing like it looks on TV.
Well, see, and this is the point of having the family of Dwight and Pamela James on. We often have celebrities. We often have we had the Attorney General of Minnesota on a couple of weeks ago, Keith Ellison, and the job that he's doing out there on the Floyd case. But to hear from a family like the James family, I think is very important for everyone to understand that there are many stories to be told, and this is certainly one of them, and we really appreciate it. Unfortunately, Jasmine James wasn't able to really join the discussion, but perhaps we'll get a chance to get with the James family again. We really appreciate you guys. Flint, again, one more time, where can they get the song?
They can get it on SoundCloud.
To America.
Yeah, To America.
It's
To America. Well,
and
what was that again, Dwight? One more time.
FlintJames.com in the next couple of days if they don't get it on SoundCloud.
Yep. Well, Dwight, Pamela, Justin, Flint, Jasmine, Jonathan, and Jayden, right? We thank you so much for joining us. This has been a very informative hour. We really appreciate it. Everybody, tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern time, in about 2 hours, we're gonna continue our Black Music Appreciation Month with Cece Peniston. So join us live right here. Everybody stay well and stay safe. We'll see you again.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate you.